Had a very long
And
day.
we are live with yet another edition of A Book and a Beverage, and we have the literary power couple, Andrew and Patricia Meredith, with us tonight.
You drinking out of a keg? Holy hell!
When did you get that? It was like for Christmas.
Birthday last year, maybe.
Yeah, Prancing Pony.
Prancing Pony.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. What's in it? Don't say water.
Beer.
It's water, isn't it?
Yeah, tonight it is. My acid's a little high right now, so I don't want to overdo it.
Oh. Prancing Pony mug with water.
It's definitely a 20. I think it'll hold 20. So good old Imperial.
Britton is here with us tonight. It's not too late for him, but he's also in his early 20s, so you know what's late.
He's still getting 5 hours.
You don't sleep. You don't need sleep. All right.
Hello.
And
So you guys are kind of it's very cool that you both write in different genres.
Yes.
Which is nice because you're not going to steal each other's stuff. You're not going to get bored by each other's stuff.
Exactly.
But you still know enough to help each other do it. How did this particular commingling happen?
Well, I am the one with the writing major. And he started writing books and said, I think I'm going to be a published author. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold my beer. Let me go first.
What do you do, Andrew?
I'm an audiobook narrator.
I mean, is that what you did before?
I've done retail and
What were you doing when you said, I'm going to write a book?
Retail. No, I mean, actually wanting to write goes all the way back to like when I was a child in the 90s and said, and read books and said, I read the Bulgariad and thought it was just these.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And Dragonlance, and I'm like 10 years old, 12 years old, 13, and I hadn't even written a book. I wrote a 1-page write-up, and I sent it to Tor, asking them to just pay me to write this book. And they never replied. I don't know.
Bastards.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's true. And
They should be seeking you out.
I know.
That letter's on somebody's wall somewhere.
Exactly. I hope so.
This kid wrote it in crayon.
In the special filing cabinet. And I world build all the way through college. Met her. Was trying to be a comic book artist. That wasn't working out because I got one bad piece of critique and it just wrecked me. And then we got married and moved to Seattle, and I had 4 hours of free time every day to bus to work, bus home from work, wait for her to get off work, my break at work. And so I wrote a manuscript in a month.
And that was the very
it was
first version.
garbage, absolute garbage. But I did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
that was the very, very, very first version of Collation.
Yep.
Nothing
the same
like
story
it,
at all.
yeah.
Almost all the same characters are in it. There's very few characters that got introduced later, but that was back in 2010 when I wrote that. I did some writing when I was working for a game company, like in-game fiction stuff, but I didn't write anything else until 2016 when we listened to
Writing Excuses. Yes.
And I was homebrewing, and while I'd be sitting there bottling, I'd be listening to all 12 seasons of Writing Excuses. And I finally had no more excuses, so I wrote a book and tore everything down to scratch. She wrote and then you wrote yours 2 years before that.
But then you turned to me and you were like, you have to listen to Writing Excuses because, especially, was it season 10?
Yep.
Is basically a master class in writing. And I
more so than Brandon Sanderson's normal.
Yeah.
Like it's above his normal writing one. They basically had been using a lot of his stuff from his stuff he taught at BYU, and then said, "Now let's do a master class, a master's level, as though you've never. If you don't have to listen to any other season before this, season 10 is your master class."
Yeah. So we listened to that, and we turned to each other, and we had 2 kids by then, and we were basically like, "Okay, what do we see for our future? What's our 5-year plan?" And we both said, "I want to be a published author." Yep. And so we said, okay, well, in order to do that, we got to start writing.
And I crashed that first, that first version of Collation, that new first version of Collation that is out now, was basically the first 2 books as 175,000 word manuscript that I wrote in 6 weeks. I've never written as fast as those 6 weeks, but I was on a roll, And then that now is 250,000 word manuscripts after the road to not getting published through traditional. COVID happened. We said, let's switch over to indie, and we went gung ho.
We've done, yeah. We took
Yeah.
the time to teach ourselves, and it's been very successful for us. We've, it was a huge bell curve, but we feel like we're on the other side of it, where now we're teaching other people how
And
to
you
do
were
indie.
you were an editor.
I was an editor. So I was an editor for Fantasy Flight Games when they launched their novel department. And so that was my background. And I worked for a whole bunch of, with a whole bunch of New York Times bestselling authors. And it taught me how hard it was to publish a book.
That's why we didn't want to do
So we were
indie.
like, yeah, I don't want to do traditional because I know how much work it takes.
We wanted to do traditional. We didn't want to do indie.
We didn't want to do
so much
indie
work. Yeah.
because it was so much work. But then COVID happened and all these new avenues opened up, and we were like, well,
Got time now.
let's just learn and let's do it. So yes, so actually I had an agent for a year and a half before COVID, and then basically over
New
COVID,
York shut down.
yeah, she emailed me and she was like, give me a call and everything, and we were just like, okay, nothing's moving. They're not looking for anything new. So if you want to publish this book, I'd say just go for it. So I did. So,
And then you just told her you're fired.
so
Yeah.
We parted amiably. But I'm very glad we've gone the way that we have. We have a lot more control over what we're writing, and that's very important to us.
And since 2022, we each have 5 books out.
Right, exactly. We're so much faster than traditional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's always been one of the big points, isn't it? Is that
Right.
you would finish a book and 2 years later, maybe it will show up somewhere. But
Yeah.
this way,
My new book coming out is proof that you can do it in less than 6 months.
6 months.
I wrote it on a whim in January, and it's coming out in a few weeks.
So
What is the new book?
So my new book is a cozy fantasy called Quaint Creatures, Magical and Mundane. And it's about a giant and his wife, who's an elf. He's a veterinarian, and they open up a monster pet store because he used to be a dungeon inspector to make sure, glitches and overlords were treating their workers fairly and providing good working conditions. And he was a whistleblower at the DOA, which is the Dungeon Organization Association, and anyway. And he got fired, and so he bought a pet store to rehabilitate all these animals he rescued from a bunch of dungeons. And,
So are you telling me that when the team goes down to dungeon crawl, the monsters they are fighting are unionized?
yes. Yes.
Yes, it's brilliant. He's got a whole economy set up.
Yeah, because I wanted to write a book that was all creatures quaint and small meets Onward meets Legends and Lattes, and deal and discuss the economy of why dungeons are important for the cities they are adjacent to, for the taxes and the heroes that bring in income and
Nice.
good. Though I don't really get into the whole like pottery economy of like heroes breaking pottery every time they enter a house, but I might get into that in a future book.
Yeah, that's like its own whole thing. I'm still a little kind of caught up by the giant and an elf.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's lots of
He's not a
couples.
40-foot giant. It's an 8-foot race, and so it's not that big of a difference.
Okay, all right.
It's like a 6.5-foot tall pastor married to a 4.5-foot tall pastor's wife.
Right.
Pretty standard, really.
So,
If you're in West Virginia,
yes.
no mail from West Virginia. You guys should be used to it by now. Just get over it.
So that's our story.
Yeah.
All right. And so, what about your books, Patricia?
So I write historical mystery and cozy mystery, and my last book kind of crosses into the cozy fantasy genre because it is a Christmas fantasy. So it's a talking snowman who comes to life at the North Pole at Christmas time, and he has to solve the murder mystery of Mr. O. Tannenbaum, who is the leading salesman of Christmas trees. So it's Death of a Christmas Tree Salesman. And that one's been really fun. So that was me looking at him and going, I hate how easy it is for you to just world build and you just make crap up. You put it in a book and you get to sell it. Because up till then, I've been writing historical mystery, which requires 4 years of research per book.
Archive visits. And...
Yes, and all this research and all this work. And I was like, I'm just going to make stuff up. And it was a lot of fun. So,
It's very liberating, isn't it?
it is.
I need something here.
Yep.
Let's make up this thing.
I'll just make up this thing. So I ended up doing actually research because I found out that I liked that part. So I did research into a lot of different Christmas traditions from around the world. And so I have a whole Santa franchise, and that's how it all works, why you have different Santas in different countries. So
what's funny is she wrote a fantasy. People who don't fantasy poo-poo.
they'll
have
read
no problem
this
with Christmas.
because it's Christmas. So somehow it gets in there, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before. All the crappy Christmas movies that Tubi and Hallmark Channel and everybody put out.
Yeah.
They're all rubbish, and we all know it. But I can't tell you how many hours I've sat there with my daughter watching that nonsense.
Exactly. And I make lots of references to that too. There's so many Christmas references.
Yeah.
All of our favorite Christmas movies and stuff like that.
She had a contest going on at Christmas to how many songs,
How many
references you can name. Yeah.
I want to recommend to you, if you like those movies, a movie called A Cup of Christmas Cheer, I think.
Okay. I
It's
feel
called.
like I've heard of that one. Yeah.
It's a parody.
Okay.
And they do everything but look straight at the camera
Okay.
and say, "This is a parody."
Right.
I mean, it's they dropped their first C-bomb about 15 minutes into it,
Oh goodness.
and you kind of go, "Oh, it's that kind of movie."
Right.
And it's laugh out loud funny
Awesome.
in parts. Towards the end, it gets a little sophomoric kind of 12-year-old college frat boy humor.
Okay.
12-year-old college frat boy humor.
Right.
But
So,
what about your historical research ones?
So I started with the Spokane Clock Tower Mysteries, which the first one is Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Taker. And those take place in Spokane, Washington in 1901, which is why I dress like this, because it's research. So, yeah.
It's funny how research involves spending money, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Wink, wink. That's
right
nudge. But I love it. I love dressing up in costumes and stuff like that. We both have a theater background, so that's something else we have in common that ends up appearing in a lot of our books and stuff. So, and I think it's why we've had so much fun doing book 2, is because it's kind of like performance art.
Yeah.
It's ties everything together. But
plus, I'm an extrovert. She's not.
I am not an extrovert.
I like getting out and chatting with people.
Yes, I'm an introvert, so I have to put on a costume to make myself feel comfortable. That's being extroverted.
That's part of the beauty of it, though, right? I mean, it's like you've been to Comic-Cons, and people there are doing all manner of weirdness.
Exactly.
And nobody bats an eye, and nobody cares, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, nice. The weirder you are, the better.
That's right.
And then they go back to their office job the next day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the Spokane series started because we were living in Spokane at the time. And so I had a book that I had written. It was a mystery, and it was set in Wales because
we also love Wales.
We love Wales, like the actual country.
We're not like going to visit the backs of a big animal.
Yes,
the country
no.
Wales.
We're Welsh by origin. So I rewrote the book as a history set once I started doing more research into Spokane's history. And because we were there, it was really easy to do hands-on research and get into the archives and read actual newspapers and things like that. And so,
and it was a weird year.
It was, and that was during the pandemic. And so it was right there.
1901's a weird year.
Oh, 1901. Yeah, it turns out 1901 was a really weird year. So I centered it around the building of the clock tower, which is still there. When you go to Spokane, the first thing you'll see as you're driving up the main road is the clock tower that still stands from the Great Northern Railroad depot. And so I was like, well, what's more iconic than that? And I just started doing more research, and there you go, setting up and so I started doing more research, built my characters, and I'm very character centric. So I have lots of quirky characters and literature references. That's kind of the thing. That's how
Which is a huge comment she gets from reviewers, because most historical mystery is not character driven. It history.
Can be if it's history.
It's very rare, but the idea of an ensemble that you wrote is the appeal.
Yeah, it's very much a motley crew. So.
Now you said it then, but I mean, obviously you like history and everything. So in the kind of notes that I've gathered for my now delayed cozy mystery.
Yes.
When I was thinking of
yes,
I kind of said, well, I can't do present day, right? Because the internet kind of ruins any kind of detective work.
It makes it,
right.
It's
like, look it up,
Right.
So yeah, I kind of said, well, I'll go 80s
Okay.
because 80s is something we all know.
Okay.
And if they ever made it into a TV show, the soundtrack would be good.
Right. Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Actually, the one that I just finished, so he just finished recording his cozy fantasy. I've got a cozy mystery that's coming out because I discovered that historical fiction now includes the 90s. So, yes. I know.
It was 20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago. So
No, it was 5 years ago.
I know.
I mean, think about when we were all kids in like the 80s, that we all looked back at the 60s and 70s.
Oh, that's ancient.
That was
It was
old.
only 5 years earlier, and we were little
Right,
kids, and
right.
it was because I mean the decades were so different, decade until the year 2000.
Yeah.
And then like to me, I look back and like there's no difference between 2024 and 2020. There's a few little things, but it's just kind of a wash.
It's all very kind of homogenous.
Yes.
Like it's like the music now. It's just
Right.
goop. It's
But what most identified the 90s was how unhomogenous it was, because it was when suddenly we had
It
a
was before the
million
internet.
radio
Yes.
stations.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't just top 40; it was the top 40 country, the top 40,
It
the top
is.
40 grunge, the top 40. I mean, everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it does come down to the music, right? That's
Yeah.
how you define a genre.
I just have to jump in here. Britton, I'll give you 70s music was good. I don't know if it's better than 80s, but it's good. But Daniel, you're so close being banned by saying the 90s are good. I don't know.
some of the 90s was all right, but you can see that's where it really started to start veering toward, especially the late 90s, started veering towards just
Get the boy band
same kind of.
Get Hanson and
There's a cure. Maybe
all
Daniel's
that.
a huge Hanson fan.
yeah,
Careful.
that's true. Sorry.
It's like I tell my kids, I said, in 20 years, 20, 30 years, all the music you're listening to now, nobody will have listened to that
Nope.
in forever. Whereas
I saw a list of 80s songs that were, it was like the worst songs from the 70s and 80s. And I'm trying, like, who made this list? Because every one of those songs are the ones that are now used in every TikTok video, every commercial. And it's like, no, they were the earworms.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because they're the worst. Is it worse because one person couldn't stand it then? I don't know.
freaking Rolling Stone, right? And
Yeah.
those
Right.
bastards. But to be honest and to be fair, the 80s had its share of real bad music.
Oh yeah,
Right. I mean, there was some absolute crap.
Rock Lobster. It's one of my number one least favorite songs.
It was worse than that, but
I can't even imagine.
but at least it was different,
So
No, that was the 70s. That's not a terrible song. Be quiet.
Okay.
What's that? What you
I tried to say Bilbo Baggins was a terrible song.
Sorry.
by Leonard Nimoy?
Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, that wasn't good. It had pure entertainment value, though.
Yes.
Especially you
Have
could watch
you
the
read
video.
Kings of the Wild yet?
Huh?
Have you read Kings of the Wild yet?
I don't read nearly enough
Me too.
because I get up early, so and I find myself doing this, at night, kind of flipping through TikTok videos when I should be sleeping.
Yep.
But yeah, I've got like 3 or 4 books by my bedside that I've only started, and no, I haven't. That's the answer. Sorry.
So Kings of the Wild with a WYLD is written by Nicholas Eames, and it's a fantasy where they're a dungeon party basically, but it's not an RPG lit yet. I think it's kind of like pre-RPG lit, and they're all members of a band. So they're basically a rock band, a hair band of the 80s, and they do all their fights against monsters for performance.
Thanks.
And Nicholas Eames, you can find his there's a Spotify list of 80s music to listen to while you're reading it. And then he wrote the sequel, Bloody Rose, is about their children in the 90s, and they're a 90s band, and they have a 90s rock alternate rock list for you to listen to while you read that book. And he's supposedly working on number 3, and I'm assuming that'll be like Nickelback or something. I don't know.
Nickelback is just, people use Nickelback as a punchline, and I think unfairly.
Yeah,
I like Nickelback.
I like the
Nickelback.
punchline, but yes, I agree. They're not that bad.
No, they're really not.
So Patricia,
I will actually say, to go back against what I just said earlier. So CJ Archer,
Yes.
Cozy Mystery.
Yep.
I have been reading her her series, Cleopatra Fox Mysteries.
Yes.
And so like I'm waiting for June for the next one of those to come out, and I will get through that very quickly once it comes out.
Yeah.
So I do read some stuff, but
if you like those, you would like mine because it's very similar. Yes.
I will. Now?
They're in audiobook too.
They are.
That was my question.
Yes.
And I was going to start it with "There's no reason not to."
Right. No, we
Andrew
do all of our books
audiobooks.
Yeah, it's really important to us to do audiobook because both of us are big audiobook readers. Yeah. So like that's how we listen to books.
We also, before we published 2019, there was a big scare where a country which will not be named, which is across the Pacific Ocean that controls a lot of Amazon, was taking audiobooks and taking books and making them into bot-read audiobooks and then putting them up on their own side of the website, which Amazon will not go against. So then indie authors were publishing their book and then getting around and making their audiobook and putting it up, and Amazon was telling them, you already have an audiobook, you're plagiarizing yourself, you can't do that. And so we made a determined decision that if we ever publish, we will have an audiobook released on the same, that's the other reason it switched over. We will always have an audiobook, and it will be released post haste with our book. So we don't see if a book's doing well and then releases it as audiobooks.
We always do it.
All three.
In fact, that's our last part of our proofreading process.
Yes.
Is to compare it to the manuscript.
Which we pick that up from Michael J. Sullivan does that.
Yeah, he does that.
He does his reading, his editing, then his audiobook, which will actually change the text in case there's something that reads better. If it reads out loud, he'll then that's his final check is his audiobook to make sure everything is kosher.
And especially with AI bots being out there now, I think it's even more important that we get our audiobooks out there before somebody else just makes one.
So do you two have like normal jobs?
Not at the moment. No. That was a recent thing. Yeah. But we've made it a year.
Yeah.
A year.
Not quite sure how, but
we've made it a year doing full-time publishing. Yeah. So
fantastic.
Yeah, thank God.
That's awesome. And your backlist between the two of you is how many books?
It's 10 books. Yeah. Right. We each have 5. Plus we have a bunch of short stories and little things.
Yeah. 10 books. At least one more coming out in the next month.
Yeah.
And at least 2 more books. You have at least 1 more, if not 2, this year. And I have, I don't know, at least 2 more books. If
we
not
generally
4.
do. We generally do 2 books a year minimum.
I'm on a roll right now, but
yeah, you might have.
Usually 2 a year.
Each.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For what
we ever see each other.
That's awesome. So it was mentioned that I should ask you this. What is your name?
My name is Inigo Montoya.
What is your quest?
To search for the Holy Book.
And what is the airspeed velocity of a swallow?
African or European?
I don't know that. Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question that's a little more serious.
More serious than a bad Monty Python interlude? No.
What's your favorite color?
No, Patricia, I want to ask you because I'm a chemist is my day job, my dreaded day job.
Oh yeah.
So I love research.
Yes.
I mean, I will stop writing for days and weeks because I just did a whole thing on guns because I was going to use it in a scene.
Yeah.
Learned all this thing, how to make bullets, and it turned out to be like 2 sentences, maybe a paragraph.
Exactly.
And nothing else is, and I'm like, but you know what? It was just cool because I got to do research.
Exactly.
So are you as bad as me?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
I spend years researching and only some of it gets in. That's why I started my blog and then now a YouTube channel is because that's where I share more about the history. So if you read my books and you're like, I want to know more about the history, I have historical notes in the back that is a very brief overview of this was all true and these things I made up, but the rest of it is all true. But if you go to my website, then I go more in depth to all that history, all that stuff that I'm like, okay, I thought this was really cool. So yeah, so I've been trying to share more of that as I publish my books.
World building nerd.
I am a world builder.
What else is there?
Yeah, that's what I discovered though, right? A cozy, a fantasy was it's actually we're both world building.
Yes.
Oops, it's just.
I mean, I do a ton
different
of research too when I
Yeah.
have to look into like odd religious movements that I want to use to spin off a heresy in my book or something like
Right,
that.
yeah.
And how do you take something that how do you create a heresy? How does heresy form? And so, because I have lots of religious themes in the Galatian saga, and so having here is the fact, and how can I split this off into various modes is important to me. So I'll listen to a 6-hour podcast on the siege of Munich in order to learn about the Anabaptists.
And then of course moon cycles.
Yes,
Always important to a fantasy.
I haven't had to touch my moon cycles for a while since I did schedule it out for like 4 years, but
He actually knows where
for
the
2
moon
moons,
is.
and so
Yes.
because I hate in a movie when it's always a full moon. You're like, no, it's not.
Oh.
And I know George R. R. Martin got around that by just not having a moon at all.
That's
And
not how that works.
yeah, and that's why there's weird tides. But so I did that. I had 2 moons, and so I will, when a moon's rising, I know when the next one's coming up, or if it's already set, so I can set the tone and go, oh, okay, the red moon's going to be out tonight, so I need to do a creepy scene because it's going to be eerie, and I can play with that. Yes, or double shadowing from silver and red, so it's like wearing 3D glasses. But I got scheduled out like 4 years in my books of when the moon cycle is for the day.
So, Patricia, question for you.
Yep, Jubilee here has not watched us long enough to know that we don't ask real pertinent questions, so she can throw one in there. Thank you very much for that, Jubilee.
So reserved, you mean researched, right? So what percent? Yeah. What percent is researched? In the end, most of it is researched. What I have found is truth is stranger than fiction. So the stuff that people read, in my books, and they go, I don't believe it. What are you looking for? Okay. Most of the things that like my beta readers will read my books and they'll go, I don't believe that would have actually happened. That is based on truth. Usually 100%. So these are newspapers from 1901 Spokane that I used
That's
to read.
awesome.
And
Where
she's a whole year from 1901.
Yeah. So here, let's go here.
Where did you get that?
In Spokane.
The archive was getting rid of it.
They were gonna
got it digitized, and so we
sell
bought a
them.
copy.
Yeah. So
That's fantastic.
here you go. So I flip through, I find the days that I'm setting my book in, and then I flip through and see, well, what else is happening in the world and what's happening in Spokane that day. So I have the weather. So even the weather, I don't make it
She
up.
has moon
It's
cycles.
literally out of here.
Yeah.
Now, in some of those old papers, especially in small towns,
Yes.
there would be little sections of them where they would say, Margaret Ray entertained the Bufords today as they sent their son off to join whatever,
Exactly. Yeah.
They have that kind of stuff in there?
Inspiration for half the stuff that happens.
She'll
in my
find so many things that show that the difference between 1901 and 2024 is 0.
yes.
Because like my favorite one is the firefighter one,
Oh.
where the firefighters wrote a thank you letter to the people about the fire last night, and I really appreciate you telling me that if I had only put my hose on the other side of the street, I could have maybe actually fought the fire.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I have 20 years of experience as a firefighter, and I really appreciate your advice.
Right. Thank you
Because
so
someone
much.
stood there and told them how to fight the fire for them.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's 2020.
There's nothing new.
Nothing.
Passive aggressive takes a new name.
Yep.
So we have a question from EL who we tried to evade by having an odd scheduling hour, but he found us.
Yep, we keep moving the show and he keeps finding us.
So that's you.
So-
So I voiced the Bloodstones for Tori Tekken. I did her audiobook and just had an absolute blast doing that book. It's such a good book. You haven't read it, you have to read it.
I bought it.
Yes.
Haven't read it yet, but I bought it.
Excellent.
Okay.
I'm very good at buying.
It's wonderful.
It's so good.
What is so Dean Sue talks about your glossary here. What does your glossary look like? What kind of stuff do you put in there?
Too much. I'm actually thinking about pulling it out and just putting it out on a wiki. But so I mean, I've done, like I said, I've got a lot of like religious organizations and stuff. So I will actually in the glossaries lay out my Dramatis Personae, which is it's easy enough to do, but just making sure people can look at it and see like how to pronounce a name. And then I'll go into like what's the actual organizational structure of the Paladins of the Hammer and what are the different ranks and how do you know them by sight? even though you only ever see about 3 of the 10 ranks that still exist, and I know what it is, and I wanted to show that off. And so it's a lot of those, because there's 3 or 4 major religious organizations, and they all interact well with each other. So what does that mean? And it lets me just do more world dumping for the fans, because I'm really big on not info dumping. And I don't even know how I did it, but I somehow stumbled into being known as not someone who info dumps, even though I have sprawling, John Morrow called it macro.
Maximalist.
I'm a maximalist. I'm absolutely a maximalist design.
Yeah.
But I don't world dump, and it's just because of the way that I pace my story, and then I info dump later.
Yeah. If you
I really want to.
Yeah.
The pair of you live in a house.
Yep.
Yes.
You have children.
2 kids. Yeah.
You stopped working. You didn't stop working, but you stopped going to a job a year ago.
Yeah.
You're still alive, which is really excellent. Otherwise, this would be a super creepy video.
Yep. It's
So what do you do to make all that work? Because I mean, I'm not talking about like health insurance and all that kind of nonsense. But like, do you advertise? You must have a good mailing list.
And we do a lot of in-person. We do as many in-person events as we can. So like we've taught at our kids' homeschool. We've taught at high schools. We taught at libraries. I was just the visiting writer for Women of Whodunit at the local college here. So we just reach out and, throw as much as we can at the wall and see what sticks. And so far, people have enjoyed having us. And so word of mouth and, hey, I went into this bookstore and they said that you're a local author. Would you ever come and speak at my bookstore or do an event or teach my kids how to write and things like
book
that.
shows. If you Christmas is a great.
Christmas is very big for us.
Absolutely do local book show. Even if you're not doing cons.
Yeah.
You can do local craft fairs. You can do really, really well.
And what we found is the first book in your series is what sells best, which is why this year we're launching 2 new series that are going to be standalone ones. Because
that's
so
what you sell at the craft fairs. You
Right.
want to have all the books out, but nobody's going to buy your series. They're going to buy book 1s.
Yes.
And best book 1.
Yes.
And that's the other advantage to us both being fantasy and mystery is we can sell alongside each other.
Yeah.
That if someone walks up and I say, hey, I write fantasy. She writes mystery.
Ooh.
Oh, I like mystery. You're like,
usually one of them sticks.
It all goes to our bank account again.
Yes.
Yeah. So you say, sorry, Mike.
Okay.
I swear to God, Mike, I'll let you say something. Mike and I were actually talking before you guys joined us, and you say you're going out and you're teaching all these things and doing all this. Mike has had an experience where he was asked to be on a panel, and I'm sure a lot of people who have been to cons and things see all these people who are leading these panels and think, oh my God, they must have some amazing CV or something where they have been chosen to be on these panels, when really it's much less.
You just have to be the one to ask. Just ask.
Yeah, there it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then be a person who they want to invite back.
Exactly. Being don't be a jerk. Yes. If
So
you're
all of the things that people think aren't really the case.
right. No.
In fact, I know that a lot of at least the bigger cons actually have post-con things you fill out to talk about how did it go for you? Is there anybody you wish you could be on panels with again? Is there anybody you wish you never had to see again in your life? And people can actually get blacklisted off of cons because they're jerks.
Yeah.
Or just not good at working on a panel, right?
Yeah.
We were we went to a con in Missoula, Montana.
Yes.
And 75 people, it's their one chance to be nerds for the year. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And Brandon Sanderson was the guest of honor. And he emceed multiple panels, and we kind of sat there and just watched him run panels. And it was like, this is how to do it. Nobody runs a panel better that we've ever seen than Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, he was so
and not because it's Brandon Sanderson.
The
person who talked way too much, he would
gently cut off,
talk over them, and get them to the next person. So everybody on the panel had a chance to be respected. And so it was like, that's what I want to be when I run
And in that vein, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Andrew, I want to tell you the one good idea I've had this year, so I'm done, is that I actually get people to buy all 4 books so far in my series, the hardbacks, because I do this.
Wow.
And people think they have a present because this is the map from the book.
Yeah.
I got a seal. Different. Every book has a different color seal with a different stamp. And I sell all 4 books in the series, and I sell a single book now. And I sell more hardbacks than paperbacks.
Okay, we're going to talk. I got to know how to do that map.
No, remember how you used to cover books when you were a kid with paper shopping bags? Yeah. You do that with your map.
So this is a 6x9 hardback, and 11x17 paper is perfect. Don't have to cut anything. Perfect.
Wow.
And where I work, they let me print.
Yeah.
And then you do each of the 4.
Yeah, each of the 4, each one has their own map, so it's a different map on every one and a different color stamp and a different, this is the owl from the first book. Yeah. They all have a different, the second one has a centaur on it. Yeah.
Wow.
Show me up, man.
That's so awesome. Yes, I started that in January. It is the greatest thing.
Okay.
So I've sold more, like I said, more hardbacks than paperbacks this year. So,
yeah. Wow. What Andrew just said, can you please do a short for YouTube of you wrapping one?
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
I can do that. That's easy.
Your short. It'll take more than 30 seconds, but do a whole filming of just filming so we can see your magic hands at work.
Yeah.
Magic Mike Mollman.
Yes, there you go.
Oh God.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to give me a minute.
Have you never seen Magic Mike?
I'm a 12-year-old.
I've seen him.
It is genuinely, I think, one of Mike's best ideas.
That's a great idea.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. That's something we've been talking about doing this year is
upping our. I'm working on some new covers for collation. And
when book 4 comes out, doing new covers that are all tied together. And, yeah, because that's one of the beauties of indie, right? Is that we can redo our covers anytime, and you grab a whole new audience every time you do it. So I love that. I love that for you.
Now we've touched on it a little bit. Andrew, you do your own voice work for your audiobooks, and you do that for anybody who wants to throw you a couple bucks.
Yes. Speaking of being full-time publishing, that helps a lot.
Yeah. How much time does that take out of your week?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at being more forceful myself of when to tell an author, sorry, man, this not sorry, man, this is as good as it gets, but more, this is my interpretation. I absolutely want to respect you, but you're asking way too much of me. Because it can happen if you have an author who wants to get in. Well, I need you to change on this line, this, on this line, this, on this line, this,
and down here.
No. So I'm getting better at that, and that's the thing too. Is if you're an author looking for an audiobook, I treat the author I'm working with as the director, and I'm the actor on the stage. And so I'm going to there's going to be some back and forth. I need to do what the director asks of me. But it's also my version of Hamlet, not Benedict Cumberbatch's version of Hamlet.
Right.
So it's going to be a different performance than maybe even what's in your head. But I'm also really big on I'll have an author actually make a cast list and give me not just actors or actresses, but the characters they play that they most picture as their character, so that I can try to not match Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October, but to be like Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October, so it can grow out of that. That's how I read Belgrath, by the way. When I read Belgrath. I
want you to be like the guy who plays Sean Connery on SNL Jeopardy.
I can do that. But tell me, does it work? You're sitting on a gold mine, Trebek.
I'll take the semen for 500.
So yeah, I can do voices and match pretty much anything. There's a few accents I have a really hard time with. Australian and New Zealand, I suck at really badly. Like if I have to do one line, like I have I have a King guitar in the next book where I had one line in Australian, and so I was like, I can fake one line, but doing a whole book would be impossible in Australian. But I can do pretty much anything else.
wide range.
Yeah.
And yet,
Do you join in with this, Patricia, or
what?
do you join in with this?
Yes. So I do. I did Anna Catherine Green, which is my other series. So my third series is the one about the mother of detective fiction. And she's a real person from history that has been forgotten. She's a forgotten female who was an Agatha Christie of her day. She wrote 9 years before Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And when he came to America, he wanted to meet her because she was so inspirational. His detective, Sherlock, is based off of her detective. Thank you, Wizard. So I got to read that one because she's my passion project. And then my current one that I'm doing right now is also a first-person female, so I'm reading it. But then we're talking about redoing the Spokane series. Originally, right now, it's being read by Rebecca Cook, who is fantastic. She is phenomenal. She did the first 3 books amazingly well. But just as we get more into doing our own audiobooks, we're thinking about
we might
going
do a
ahead and doing the co-read. So I would read the female POVs and he would read the male POVs because the Spokane series goes back and forth between 6 to 8 different POVs depending on the book. And
then I master those when she does that.
Right. But then like he read the Sam Shovel one, which he does in
as Sam Spade.
In a Sam Spade accent. And then he did phenomenal. He's got all these different voices for the Yule lads who are like gnomes, crazy gnomes that are all over the place, and trolls.
It's fun because she wrote a noir, but it's in the North Pole, so it's all cheery.
Yes.
And so like it opens up with like the smell of candy cane in the morning, it was wonderfully done.
Well, the first line is "I was dead to begin with."
I was dead to begin with,
because that's the opening of Christmas Carol.
How old are your kids?
8 and 10.
Okay, so they're still young enough to think what you do is really, really cool.
Yes, in fact, they write their own books because they want to be like us.
And they just started reading our books too because we finally wrote things they could read.
Yes, that's why we turned cozy this year. We were like, we want to write books that they can actually read at this age. I mean, when they're older, they can.
Because they're a year or two out from reading our other fantasies, which are still clean fantasies, but they're just like I wouldn't give Deathless Beast to a 10-year-old because it's just they'd be bored out of their mind.
Yeah.
You need to get them into the voice acting thing.
That's right.
Yes.
You might.
Well, no. Did you see that?
What? No, I didn't.
Oh, he was talking about Australian.
Oh, sorry. I'll put that back.
Yeah. Sorry. Start to say every vowel.
Yeah.
Like it's another. Yeah.
I just need to watch more Bluey, and that should get me in the mood.
Yeah.
So I do want to shout out EL here. I listened to his audiobook and he just sent me a copy of the hardback.
Ooh, nice.
And this is the book that I did not know I wanted. This is phenomenal. Easily a 5-star. And of course, Bo is not on this one because he tells everyone I give everything 1 star or DNF it. So of course he's not here. The second time I've told everyone that EL's book is phenomenal.
Awesome.
Of course he's not here.
And to what EL said about it selling really well, you never know with audiobooks. A Christmas book at Christmas time on Spotify just knocked it out of the park for us, which is why she's writing another one as quick as she can for next Christmas because they promoted it the week of Christmas, and so it just outsold everything for months. Yeah.
Awesome.
So have you made plans for when that one thing ignites and you guys are household names across the country and you're calling us back up and asking us to remove this from YouTube so people can't see that you're actually with us?
We're indie. We don't have to. We're not going to go trad.
That's right. Yeah. No, we love it. We love it.
Yeah, I mean, you can still get a TV deal with Apple or something without.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Spokane is used for filming a lot, and so I've talked to several people who are like, "You have to film the Spokane books here." I'm like, I'm open to it. So if anybody's a script writer out there wants to turn my books into a script, let's go do it.
Yep.
So.
We'll take options.
That's right. Yeah.
Go to the university and find somebody doing a film.
True. Yeah. Right. Find a student. Absolutely. Yeah. Spokane's a college town.
No, if we make it big, it'll just be a little bit breakier as we have to use like our Starlink from like the property we buy up in the mountains or something.
Yes, because
the internet's very good down here.
Our ultimate plan is to build a hobbit hole.
No, our ultimate plan is to build a whole shire.
Well, yes.
It's the only way I would ever live in an HOA is if it is literally the shire.
Yeah.
And 1 month out of the year would be a full festival.
You have to dress up.
Like a hobbit.
So you can own a house there, but you have to dress up. Yeah.
I have the body of a hobbit.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Patty Bolger. Sorry.
EL was asking if you can repeat the pen names for the mystery books.
For the mystery. So, are you talking about Anna Catherine Green? So that's a Deed of Dreadful Note.
You can grab one of those books and hold it up so everybody can see the cover.
I know they're all behind me. All right. So Deed of Dreadful Note is the first book ever written about Anna Catherine Green, who's the mother of detective fiction. So if you love mysteries, I would highly recommend starting with this one because it will.
Standalone.
It's a standalone right now. It's the first in the series, but it's her writing her first mystery. And so it goes through here are things that were written before her, which is going to be Poe and Wilkie Collins and all the things that inspired her to write. Emile Gaboriau, only some of those names, which you probably recognize. And then after her comes Agatha Christie and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Dorothy L. Sayers and all of them. So lots of references to the history of mystery and how to write a mystery. And I was able to the research for this was just phenomenal. I was able to really dig into her life and her poetry and everything. And she and I just have a lot in common. So that's that one. And then Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker is the first in the Spokane Clock Tower mysteries. And this is the one Wizard always tells me to push because it's his favorite. So these three, this one, and then Cupboards All Bared and Crazy Maids in a Row. And I have a lot of people ask me if they can read this one first, and you really can't. You have to read them in order. This is a series, and it builds on the characters. So you have to follow their life through these three books. And this is only the first 3 books in the series. I have a baker's dozen planned, so 13 books. So I've still got another 10 to write. So in that one. And then Death of a Christmas Tree Salesman is a noir murder mystery set at the North Pole with a talking snowman and so many Christmas references you could choke a reindeer. It's so much fun. So are you going to do a Twilight parody? No. So Twilight is set in Forks, which is on the opposite
that's on the west side of the state.
Opposite side, yeah. It's
Spokane's
over by
right up against Idaho.
No sparkly vampires in Spokane. Maybe some werewolves. Definitely some werewolves.
Well,
but yes, and definitely Sasquatch in Spokane.
You should do like a horror mystery set out at Hanford.
So there you go. So.
And then I've got Thrice, just book 1 in the Needle and Leaf series.
My favorite book.
Yeah, your favorite book. Wow.
That's your favorite.
Thank you.
I have different favorites every day, but this is in that list.
He only has one favorite.
Fantasy, Lone Wolf and Cub, Mandalorian story. A year later is when Fourscore takes place, and Needle and Leaf, Jovan and his son Leaf are stuck behind a siege, and there's a little romance in that one. And then Deathless Beast is book 1 of the Collation saga. So paladins, mercenaries, paladames, man in a cloak made of bones that makes him invisible to the gods. He's trying to kill him, hijinks ensue. And then Bone Shroud is book 2. And that takes place over winter, like a week later. And then Gloves of Eons is book 3 and is the aftermath of Bone Shroud. And book 4 will be coming out this summer, I think. That's called Dread Knight.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. You guys are keeping busy.
Very.
We are.
That's an
You
alpha.
kind of have to now, though, don't you?
That's beta
Yeah.
right now.
So, Andrew, I have a question. You said on a show, I don't know, a year ago probably, that you were thinking about your books, you were going to make a game out of it or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a board game designer for a few years. I worked for Fantasy Flight Games, and so I can do it. Sometimes I get going with too many projects at once, and that pushes it back. I do have a war game I do really want to design that'll take place during the wars 70 years before Deathless Beast. I'm after book 4. So Collation Saga is going to be an 8-book series, but between the 2 groups of 4, I'm going to write another series that'll be like my episode 1, 2, 3 back during those wars, and I will very much plan to do an accompanying war game to go with that. So at that point, I'll probably be looking for artists and miniature designers, because I really want to push towards 3D printing, that people could 3D print their own miniatures, and I'll be providing the rules and the designs, and then I'll work with somebody to help me produce those STLs. So yeah, because that is the way of the future.
Yeah.
So relying on the 4 books a year kind of thing, do you find that is it ever get to like a burnout stage that you just want to like do nothing for a couple of weeks, or do you kind of schedule that time in?
I schedule it in. So January is my burnout month because Christmas takes so much out of me, especially now that I have a Christmas series.
Right.
Yeah. So it took me a couple of years to realize I have to plan that January it's okay to do absolutely nothing, to curl up with a blanket and read a bunch of books. And so that's my reading month is January and February, really. And then basically as I come out of that, I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to write again.
And I burn out during production of the books. I'll say, oh, I'm just in the middle of the day. I'm just editing my files and getting my audiobook ready. So I can do some writing in the morning because I write early in the morning, and I don't because it takes up so much of my. It's not even creative energy. It's just energy.
It's just energy.
And I can't write. And then by the time you finish finally producing the book, you're just burnt out. You're dying to write again, but you can't. You don't have it in you, and so.
So we're trying to get faster at the production part, so that way it only takes a month. So we can have basically a month off and then get right back into it.
But that's one of the reasons we work on multiple projects in different series at the same time, is so that there is some staggering. And we also have not this latest book, but we have a very slow production schedule by design because we want alpha and beta to have time to read and for us to set it aside and forget the book even exists and work on something else during that time. So that when we come back to it, it's a totally new book and we aren't attached to it.
Right. It helps with critiques. It makes the critiques a lot easier to take because we're not right next to it, right? So then we're a little bit more open to hearing, okay, you have to cut that.
Otherwise, we're just obsessing about waiting every 5 seconds for someone to put one note in the document, like give me a comment. And if I can just forget that, because then you end up, it's really hard when you have people who you even tell them, I know, my mother-in-law is in the comments. And this is towards her in that I know she's going to do some line editing. So are 3 other people. Even though I told them, please don't do line editing, they're still going to give it to me, which is great. If I get it from her first and make those changes, then when the other ones come in, they have the same note. I can't find the error. I'm like, where's the error? Well, it's because I fixed it a month ago when the first note came in. So if I just calm down, Andrew, and get all my comments in at once, I can have 4 windows open and take all of their comments one chapter at a time and fix everything. And then if it's then I can see the structure of where my errors were. So
do you guys have like social media accounts and all that? I'm thinking you must.
Yep, we're on Instagram. I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Why don't you give me your X thing and we'll throw it up on the thing here.
They're all in the description.
Are they? Fantastic. Look at you, Michael.
There you go.
Yeah,
on top
you can find me everywhere at Andrew
almost
D.
like you've done this before.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, I have a
handles that cross the board.
Yeah.
Like you can look up my handle. It'll bring up my YouTube channel, my Goodreads, everything.
So I have an oddly specific question for you.
Yep.
Palladames.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
It came from why hasn't it happened yet?
Exactly.
So I'll have to tell you, I'm going to write a series next after, and it's going to have a dwarven paladin in it, female.
You
and so
call her paladin.
And I was talking to my guy at work, and I was like, "So what do you think? Is paladin unisex, or should I call him paladame?" And he lit into me, that is so sexist and horrible. And I'm like, what?
No.
I had one person who's commented and said that, and when they read it, they said, I got to paladin and I thought that's really sexist, but it's so perfect. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Just like you have knights and you have dames.
Yep.
And we call them sisters of battle from 40K.
Yeah.
We call them the Adeptus Sororitas, which means sisters.
So
that implies. So do what you want.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this guy, I like to poke him because he is easily offended.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what can I do now to stir the pot? Because that's what I do. That is what I'm known for at work.
So call them paladins and palamales.
Or palagents.
Yes, palagents. There you go. Hella nice.
Yeah.
Andrew, I've just noticed something, and you'll probably get what I'm about to say, and maybe a couple of other people, and I mean this in the best possible way. You've got a little Dom DeLuise thing going on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So it's not just me then. You see it too.
No. Maybe I dress like this because I like all dogs go to heaven and you don't.
Probably. This has been his signature style since we started swing dancing.
Yeah.
He's always had the hat as long as I've known him, and the beard. I won't let him shave because he looks like he's 16 when he shaves. So.
Which
Yeah,
was
I have
cool
that
once
problem
upon a
too.
time, but now it's just creepy for you.
But I knew it was college by then, so a 23-year-old who looks like he's 16.
I mean, in our first few years of marriage, it went back and forth because I had retail jobs where I had to shave, and I was also too young, and so the beard's itchy, and it takes years before the beard stops itching, and now it doesn't, so it stays on.
I like the Thor look better.
Yeah. She asked me if I wanted to grow it longer, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe.
No, it's good.
Grow it out and braid it like a Viking.
Yeah, I do have a bead.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's never fit.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So you do events. Do you do Comic-Cons?
Not yet. We're prepping.
We've done a couple of them.
We've done a couple, yes, but then we kind of took a break from it because it just honestly they weren't delivering in a way that we wanted them to.
They're very hit and miss.
They're very small ones.
Very hit and miss,
and we did really well, supposedly, according to other tables. It's like,
yes.
I'm sorry.
But it just, So, and the cost of traveling and everything. And up until a year ago, he had a full-time job elsewhere. So it was very hard for us to just
have the time.
Take off to.
But we have
two.
Two. I would love to get a third one on next year. That'll be big.
Yes,
yeah. I really want to go to Worldcon up in Seattle.
And we'll be doing Denver.
And Denver Fan Expo in Denver. I'm going to do with several other authors, and we'll do a giant share booth. Which, when you do the big cons like that as a share booth with like other people, it's supposed to be very lucrative. At least break even, but it's lucrative as opposed to a little con where you make $70.
I also think cons are slowly starting to finally make a
ramping
comeback.
back up.
It's been 4 years since 2020,
Yep.
and so I think next year, we're going to see a lot more. Yep. It'll be worth it.
There's a couple I'm eyeing out east, but we'll see.
Yeah.
2022 and part of 23 was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Because people were just kind of coming back out. They had a year and a half worth of money that they hadn't spent.
Yeah.
They were excited to be in groups again.
Yeah.
And then last year, and this year so far, it's been the people are there, not in as many, the numbers aren't quite there.
Yeah.
And the spending is definitely not there. And, I think that's thanks to.
It's an election year and everyone's holding their breath. Yeah.
So, Andrew, I'm glad that you're going to Worldcon. My goal is to try to go next year.
Yeah.
So
it's be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't discussed if we're doing a booth, but I know several authors who are trying to make their way there. And if we do, we will. I would very much like to get an indie booth there. I wanted to go last year to New York, or I guess it was not Toronto, and said, we indies need to roll in like we're the fifth column of publishing.
Yeah.
And just say, we're here.
With our powers
Get
combined.
over it.
Because with our powers combined, we could take down trad. But we need to realize that we're not in
we're not in
competition. It's not a competition between the authors. It's a community, and that's part of why we love it. So
I think it's good actually that trad continues to exist. However, just if for no other reason that if it doesn't, then indie starts to become the traditional way of doing it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have gatekeepers again. You still see it a little bit now with some of the people who are starting to figure out a way to monetize services directed at indie authors.
Yeah.
Where you're starting to kind of see the beginnings of those gates being put back up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we use it while we can. And then
Yeah, you could be the next big publishing couple. Start your own imprint.
I don't know. We want to publish other people's stuff. We like publishing ours.
I have an idea I'm playing around with.
Yeah?
It's going to take a little time to get up,
Okay.
I think.
Do you guys have an imprint for your books?
We do. Games Afoot LLC.
Games of Nice.
Yes. Because it started as doing game
For games.
design,
I had a
and then we
failed
realized
Kickstarter, and then realized we still had the business license. So
we were like,
just kept
Games
using
Afoot.
it.
Well, that covers mystery,
Yep.
and so the game.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
And then nobody else is using it. So.
So I'll tell you, I went to one Comic-Con, Connuga, in Beaver Castle Media. The one road in and out of my neighborhood is Beaver Castle Road, hence the name. But the people who were doing the booth when you checked in, they were all 20, and they're like, Beaver Castle, what do you write? And I'm like, sorry, it's just fantasy. It's not what you're expecting. Nothing like that.
Not everything is an innuendo.
So, and my brother told me, because I was going to be Beaver Castle Press or Beaver Castle Publishing, he goes, do media, because you never know. You might end up going elsewhere other than printing stuff. So I was
Exactly.
like, sure. So,
Yeah. That's awesome.
but
So what's next for you? You said you got a book coming out later this summer, Andrew?
Each of us, yeah.
But we each have a book coming out the next month.
Okay.
Great Creatures for me, and then
Slings and Sparrows, the first in the Goose and Penny mysteries.
you're writing the next Christmas one.
Yep.
And Christmas, or Spokane, right?
And then the fourth Spokane one I'll start this year. So,
Yeah. And then I've written Collation 4. So now that's just on the conveyor belt towards publication. And I'm a third of the way into writing Needle and Leaf Book 3, which is Fife and Drum. And then I might just pop out a couple more cozies if this first one is readily accepted. There's no reason for me not to just
have fun.
trip and stumble into 2 more books. So
The nonchalance with which you say that is at the same time both inspiring and wonderful and maddening.
Yeah.
So they're very short.
Novellas,
They're very short. They're very short. So like Collation, those are fat books. Those are 150,000 word. I know it's not 300,000 words, but it's still it's still a big book. I'm trying to keep my books under 200,000 for printing costs because I don't want to charge $40 for a book. So those are big, but Quaint Creatures is only 50,000 words. So it's like a Western. Like I was just looking at the word count from like Appaloosa by Robert Parker, and it's you could read it in a couple of hours because it's 50,000 words. Well, that's what I wanted to write was the old the old school fantasies from the 70s and 80s that were the little paperbacks, and you had those. So like I think of like Myth Aspirin's books, or all of Del Rey's early books are just these thin little things. So I wanted to do that because we should have that again. Is some of these shorter books. So I did it.
Short and fun.
Short and fun.
Yeah.
And discovery write. I don't normally discovery write, but
So, Ro, I meant to warn you before we had this interview on. Andrew writes an insane amount of words. Like, well, off day today, only 8,000 words before breakfast.
Not every day. Only when I'm on a roll, and that's like 1 month out of 4.
Yeah, his slow days are 3,000.
To be fair, though, Mike, in the back of Andrew's head, it's like, got to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get up at 5 a.m. ish, and I write from 5 till 7 or 8. And if I am in full writing mode, I'm writing. I mean, 8,000 words are weird days. Those are very odd days where I'll actually have like a 20-hour. I'm going to write for the next 2 days straight. Then I can crush a weekend, but then I burn out really, really fast. Joe's insanely fast. I don't know what his daily clip is, but he clips really fast.
Yeah.
The most words I think I've ever written in a day, oddly, was, I think it was earlier this month or last month. I bought a fountain pen for the first time ever.
What kind?
And I just started handwriting.
Yeah.
And I was just like going at it. And when I got to typing it up, it was I don't know, it was like 4,000 words or something.
Wow.
But it was wonderful. It's like I could actually write the book like this,
Yeah.
and it would be fun.
That's how Ari Sanders does it. Ari Sanders writes
physical.
his 100,000 word manuscripts by hand, and then transcribes them, and that's his first pass.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good way to do it.
I can see how that is because as you're transcribing it,
Yep.
you're like, okay, yeah, that's not good.
It slows you down, so you have a
Yep.
better chance to kind of stay ahead of yourself. So
Yep.
it's a lot easier to not hit a brick wall if you're writing by hand. What kind of pen did you get? Lamy?
It's a Conklin.
Okay.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah.
I started a new job, and I am up in DC a couple days every couple of weeks, and right outside my window there's this fountain, this pen shop.
Nice.
Right, it's been there for like 90 years or something,
Yeah.
95 years.
Yeah.
So I just went in there and started looking around, and it's like, oh, how much is this? Oh, that's $1,500. Oh my god! To take me to the other end of the store where the cheap stuff is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot, and I did it for research, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Because the story I'm writing involves magic that has to be written down, and so there's
Ooh.
pens and all that kind of nonsense in it. So Thomas Pynchon. Don't know who Thomas Pynchon is.
I just want to mention we had C.M. Kaplan on this show.
Yeah.
And this might give you nightmares. But he said he wrote 170,000 words. And then he went through and he got rid of all the stuff that he didn't like, and he had 30,000 words left. And then he did it again, and he cut the stuff he didn't like, and he had like 60,000 words. So he did it third time. I'm like, you wrote 500,000 words to write one. Oh my God. Oh God.
And you throw them all away.
Yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
can't throw anything away. I keep everything.
No.
Yeah.
I almost never edit down. I usually edit up.
Yep.
But I also got my writing. I know what my goal is almost every book, and I'm usually within 10,000 words of my goal. So if I have 175,000 word manuscript, it's because I planned for 175.
Now you do have, like, when your editor got it back, he had cut
30,000 words, and I had probably below 150, and I did not want to have a book shorter than the books before. So I struggled to find back another 10,000 words at least to get me above the 150, so that I wasn't selling anybody short.
Does he just send you back, your editor, they just send you back your manuscript?
Track
changes.
We do
Okay,
track
all right.
That way
Okay,
we
good.
can go through and and accept or deny each one. So
I was really mad. I was really mad to start when he did that,
but then
because
you
it
got
was so
in there.
much. And I got about 50% of the way through, and I was back above 50, and my heart rate was back down. And
But also
then by
you
the end,
should.
I was like, okay, I mean,
You didn't notice where he had
it's
cut.
not like he had. There were only a couple places where he pulled a whole paragraph.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, it was
Just a little bit
word
here, a
here,
little
word
bit
there, and he cut down 30,000 words. And it's like, how do you even do that? And he did.
Well, the beauty of track changes is that you're going through it and looking at it, you're kind of able to see what it is that they're seeing,
Right.
and say, oh, well, maybe I need to look at how I'm doing that,
Absolutely.
And he's a good enough editor. I generally accept almost everything.
Yeah.
I'll be click, and just let it go, because I just,
doing it for a
I know
reason.
it's cleaning it up. Me and him agree on our commas more than me and her do. So he's.
Are you an Oxford comma girl?
I love
I'm
commas.
an Oxford comma,
Oh,
but
no.
I
Me
don't.
too.
But I don't
Oxford all the way.
believe commas should be there as a breath.
I do.
He uses them as a
Yeah,
breath.
that's what they're for. So you can breathe while you read.
Neil Gaiman way.
It is.
Yep, that's what Neil Gaiman does.
So, Andrew, I just want to, I don't know if JCM is still in the chat or not, but he threw down the gauntlet, and by God, I'm trying to follow it. My first book was 101,000 words. My second book was 103. And the one that's coming out this summer, I just sent a row, was 99,711.
You could have come up with 289 more words, man.
That's right.
So I always tell people that I've expanded. I will now read fantasy books that are 500 pages, but that is my absolute limit. Anything more than that, you need an editor with a hatchet, and then I'll read it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, because you don't like series creep, right? Where every
No.
book is half as big as the one before.
no, can't handle.
Like, if that's
Although-
not, split the book up. Split the book. We'll buy more books from you. Just split it up.
Now,
My-
I'm
my
worried
first-
about my final book, how big that's going to be, because I have to tie up all the loose ends. But
Well, it's gonna be like 104,000 words. Oof.
I know.
My first book, I think, was 120.
Wow.
And if I would go back and edit it again, it would probably be closer to 100.
Yeah.
And all the other 5 books in that series were about 95. The series I'm working on now, I went into it saying 65. And like you were talking about earlier, Andrew, it's like I'm going to do a fantasy series with about 65,000 words a book. Just because I kept finding myself at that place and going, there's nothing saying this has to be 100,000 words.
Right.
And maybe people would like something that they could get in and get out of.
Yeah. The other reason that might help is like, I don't know what it is for you, but I find that I have a 30,000 word wall. When I hit 30,000 words is the point when I usually quit something or I have to power through. Well, if I'm only writing a 40,000 word book, I have 0 excuses at the 30,000 word mark. I've written 30,000 words. I better finish it. It's only 10,000 words. And, so I think that helps too. Not that I finished the Woodhouse one, but
whereas the mystery length, average length, a historical is on the top end, 90,000, and so mine are about 80 to 90,000, and then cozy is like
40,000,
very strictly
50,000,
like 50,000 or less,
Yeah.
because they want really short, quick books. So I feel like cozy fantasy is headed that way.
Yeah,
it'll be in that 50
even
to
Legends
70.
and Lattes is only less than 60, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
So
have you heard of the mice quotient?
No.
No.
Well, you have to look that up. It's a mathematical way to figure out how many words you're going to have based on how many characters and themes you have for your book. And it's so mice, Orson Scott Card set, like mice is milieu,
which is the
setting, idea, character, or event. And each book always has one of those at least. Like, the day after tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, San Andreas Fault is a event story because it's about an earthquake. And so you can set those, and what you do is you can pick like one, or if a bigger book, you might pick 2. Mysteries are a lot of ideas, or not ideas, event, because someone dies, right?
Which one?
Mystery is an event. And
mystery
often
is
character.
usually event and character.
Right. So you take one of those, like you say, you're going to write a mystery. It's going to have an event, and I want it character driven. That's 2. And then you say, okay, I need to have 5. I'm going to have 25 characters. So you take 25 times 1.5 times 1.5 times 750, and that is your word count. And it almost always you can reverse engineer a lot of books and say, okay, I'm counting that there are this many books, and the idea is that you will need to spend 750 words on each character, all of them. Your main character will take a big amount, and so that your lessers will have less than 750 words per character, but it all equals out to about 750 words. And then times 1.5 is to introduce the plot. And if you have 2 different plots, then 1.5, 1.5. And so you end up with these. Why is my book 275,000 words? Well, it's because you have 1,000 named characters and 3 themes, which is okay. But that's why it's 275,000 words. So then you can say, okay, I need to cut out some character. And you can figure out, how can I get this down? Oh, I need to cut characters. I need to cut events, places, less travel time. And you can suddenly realize it's a lot easier to manage your characters by that quotient.
Or you just write the Wheel of Time again.
Right.
It's funny because I forget who it was that said cut out the shoe leather, right? Get rid of the travel. But then you look at Lord of the Rings, and it's nothing but a freaking long hike.
Right. But I would argue that, so everyone uses Lord of the Rings as the first fantasy, and it's mythology. It's not. It has the basis for fantasy, but I wouldn't say it's the first fantasy.
It's the first one that showed us how we could do it, and everybody's copied it in a lot of ways since then.
It's more, but that it requires so much more world building than what I think a lot of people do.
You can look at a romance as a chick lit book. The travel is they go to the coffee shop. How many times during the book? And they talk at the bookstore. It's the same thing whether Meg Ryan is in her bookstore talking to her other staff, or whether you got characters on a road over a campfire. It's the same thing, except that those who like chick lit don't want to read about camping, and those who read fantasy don't want to read about a bookstore. They should, because bookstores are great. But my point is that it's all just the icing, right?
So I had an idea. I have to write this short story sooner or later, but it's about a library, and they got their funding cut, and so they decide they're going to do a bank heist.
Nice.
The library in Florida.
So it's like 4 or 5 librarians, and they're all going to do a bank heist, and they all have quirky characters. And I'm like, I have to write this. I have to
write that.
Yes.
That could be more than a short story. That's a cozy mystery
series,
right there. That's I
Oh.
would so read that.
Serial bank robbers.
If you need inspiration, have you watched Leverage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love
Right.
Leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love heists.
Motley Crue. Yeah,
we watch Ocean's 11 at least every other month.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? What are you writing right now, Rob?
The one with it's a fantasy story. So I'm probably 20,000 words into it. I haven't hit the inciting incident on it yet. I'm purposely trying to make it a little bit more descriptive, right? And kind of build the characters up a little bit more. It's probably the first time I've actually written down anything ahead of time, as opposed to just saying, let's write something.
Okay.
You know?
So you've been a discovery writer, and this is your first outlining?
Yeah, I'm not really outlining. I mean, it's not quite that much, right? The difference between this one and every other book I've written is I've known how the other ones are going to end.
Yep.
And this one, I don't yet. I kind of started with a concept.
Yeah.
And started just running with it. And it's changed a little bit and gotten better with the changes. But I'm kind of delaying because I think I only figured, I was talking to Mike the other day, I've only just figured out what the bad guy's about. Okay. He's not introduced yet. We know nothing about him or, any of that yet. But so I still don't know where it's going.
And then are you going to try a cozy mystery?
I definitely will, because I've got a ton of notes on that. And I played with all kinds of different placements, and I think it's going to be up in Vermont, which is where I'm from.
Awesome.
In the 80s. So, even if it had cell phones, you wouldn't get reception half the time anyway. Right. It doesn't matter.
Right. But the requirement is, if you write it in Vermont and you have any kind of romance, you have to have a woman carrying coffee and running around corners saying, I never want to get married. And she'll run into somebody, right? Because that's the requirement for.
Yeah, I'm not having romance.
What's the name of that mystery book? The writing mystery book?
It's over there. What's her name? I'll come back to it. I'll send you a book.
What you just said, though, is do you ever watch Cinema Sins? It's a YouTube channel called Cinema Sins.
No.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
At least the first 10 times you watch it. So the guy watches movies and he goes through and he kind of critiques the movie. And what you just said is one of the things he always brings up. It's like, and he like dings points, right? How many sins the movie gets for various things.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool.
And so it's like, it's the old, I'm never going to do this, followed immediately by me doing this cliche, right? And type of thing.
Exactly.
It's worth checking out. He's been doing it for years.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. You should check that out.
Awesome. I love Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker.
Mm-hmm. They're fun.
I've been watching them a lot.
Critical Drinker?
Yes. Yeah.
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 This is another story that needs to be written here.
So my new cozy mystery that's coming out is Murder, She Wrote meets Golden Girls. It's a bunch of retired ladies living in Pennsylvania, and they each have a bird associated with them. And so, Critical Drinker. It's a great one. It's like
he does really great criticisms of Hollywood.
Criticisms of Hollywood and where they're headed right now. But this one's so it's Goose and Penny. So for example, the main two are Goose and Penny. So Goose is an older sister. They're both in their 60s, retired. And Goose has 2 geese that are named Tommy and Tuppence, which is a reference to Agatha Christie's detectives. And then her little sister, Penny, suffers from anxiety. So she has a comfort chicken, which is a chicken that you carry everywhere that is a soft, plucky chicken that helps you with your anxiety. And her name is Penny, and her bird is named Henny. And so together they're Henny Penny, waiting for the next piece of sky that's falling. And so each of the women on their property are renting from them and have a bird associated with them. And so there's like one with a raven and one with a peacock and one with guinea fowl. And so it's all like bird centric, women of a certain age. Yeah. And it's all written in the 90s. And so it's Ask Jeeves has just come out. They don't know how to use the internet. They don't have cell phones, things like that. It's really fun. So yeah, old people solving mysteries. I love it. I love Snarky Grandma.
You're all in Colorado, right?
Yeah,
we are.
That explains it.
So, well, my dad grew up in Pennsylvania, so that's why this is set in Pennsylvania. It's all about his.
It's in the waist belt of
the waistline. Yeah, Maryland's waistline,
yeah.
right, where it's a mile and a half between Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia, and
Yeah.
so it's set right there. So yeah, but yeah, he's from Pennsylvania. My mom's side is from Virginia, and then I'm an Army brat, so I'm from a little bit of everywhere. So.
and I'm Washington.
And you're Washington through and through. So yeah. So I pronounce some things very Midwest because I've spent a lot of time in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, that area.
So do you wash your clothes?
I don't wash. You don't actually say that. Your aunt says
I have
that.
a couple family members who do that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we give them a hard time. My grandma was from Oklahoma, but lived most of her life in Washington, and she said Washington.
But you do shop with a bag.
I shop with a bag. Yeah, that's what you
Bag.
put your things in, is in a bag.
With a bag.
But that's because Spokane has really strong ties to Wisconsin, Minnesota too. So there's a lot of Midwestern, upper Midwestern.
Very, yeah.
So I'm originally from Kentucky, and the one thing that people always tell me is that no one knows how to say the word properly. I say it measure, and no one else says it that way.
Like to measure something.
Yeah, no, you don't measure like you're a goat. You measure.
Measure. Yeah.
Measure it.
What do you call the mountains that run through Kentucky?
The Appalachians.
Appalachian. Okay. Yeah.
What do you call them in Vermont?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. They don't have the Appalachians.
We call them the Green Mountains
Up through there.
No, they're the
because in Vermont the Appalachians are the Green Mountains.
Appalachians.
The
There
Green
you go.
Mountain, okay.
The Green Mountains. They used to
Well, her
Appalachians.
dad's from.
I purposely still maintain some pronunciations down here,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a town nearby here called Stanton,
Mhm.
Staunton, which is Staunton. 100 times out of 100, that's Staunton,
Yep.
but they pronounce it Stanton.
Yep.
It's like
Yeah. So my
assume-
grandma is in Lexington, so I know exactly where Stanton
Okay.
is. Yep.
And
Yeah.
she in high school went, and it was in a city called Buena Vista.
Buena Vista.
Oh yeah.
Buena. Buena
So I
It's
pronounce
not-
it
not
wrong
the
because
Buena
I'm
Vista,
not from here.
but
she
not the
is.
Buena Vista you're thinking of out in Virginia. This is
This is- yeah, Buena Vista is how
because there's a
it's
Buena
how they
Vista near
pronounce it.
Lexington and Stanton in that area. That's a different kind of
It's a very weird place, but if I walk outside and look at the mountains, it's essentially Vermont, but it's 20 degrees warmer and a lot cheaper. So it's all good.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'll just add, Kentucky has Versailles.
Versailles.
Yeah.
Yep. When I was in Ohio, we had a Versailles. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's the redneckest thing I've ever heard.
Yep.
I'm sorry. So when you were in New York, Patricia, were you up at 10th Mountain up in?
We were in at West Point. My dad taught
Oh
at
right, okay, West Point.
West Point, and then he came back and he was a professor there. So yeah.
Nice.
Jubilee, you need to write these stories.
Yeah, right. Jeez.
Doing that surprise. Yeah, write something. Go for it.
So,
What are you writing right now, Mike? So are you working on book 4?
I am not. I'm going to irritate people. I have 4 books out in my series, and I go to Comic-Cons, and like you had said before, I want to have more entry points.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I just finished up a sci-fi
Okay.
that my editor now has.
I'll get to it.
But actually, I just got this weekend. This is the cover art for it.
Oh,
Wow.
whoa!
So Matt Slay actually does an actual drawing, and then he scans it. So I got the painting and I got the
That's so
cover.
cool.
Wow.
And I'm going to just pimp Matt Slay. Matt does. Oh, you can't see this, can you?
Yeah.
Does my books as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let me get rid of this damn thing. I'm sorry. Virtual backgrounds. Just
Your
no.
house.
So Matt does.
Awesome.
Wow.
He's done all my series
Yeah.
of this particular series, and he's just one of these guys that I met at a very small con.
Yeah.
It's really hard to call it a con. It was a super small thing. It was like $25 a table kind of thing.
Yeah.
One day, but it was worth going just to meet him,
Mhm.
So, and a super nice guy, and we'll sit there and tell you anything you want to know about what he does.
So is it decklit?
What's that?
Is it a decklit fantasy? Like, is it a deck RPG? Like an RPG lit with decks?
No, it's just a story about the guy met an old witch in the woods, as one does, and she laid out some tarot cards essentially.
Yeah.
And he gets a group of them, but only one of them has a picture, and that's the one on the cover. And until he figures out what that's about,
Sure.
then the next one will show itself, and it's all going to kind of lead him to the end of this thing.
Nice.
I like
And
it.
I do have someone working on some other art. I mean, the idea is here in the next year or two to actually produce a tarot deck based on this series. So it's just a matter of getting the art because I can't draw.
Awesome. And Mike, what's your sci-fi about?
So it is a post-apocalyptic coming of age.
Okay.
It's darker than my fantasy series,
Okay.
and the protagonist is younger. His father is killed, and he finds out later he's murdered, and so he has to pick up all the pieces and provide for himself because there's no Social Security
Right.
in Mars. And then he finds out his dad was murdered, and he has to try to find out who that was, and he goes to some dark places. My brother, when he read it, he'll be like, "So how's the happy little psychopath today?"
You say it takes place on Mars?
Yeah.
Cool.
So the thing is, Earth fell. When I first did it, I said there's a blight or whatever, and all the corn died and people starved. And then my brother's like, "Have you seen the last ship? That's what happened on the last ship." And I was like, "You're killing me."
Yeah.
So then in 2019, I said, "You know what? There's a pandemic, because when's the last time that's happened?" And so now I've changed it. And so now it's 2 massive volcanoes go off 3 years apart, and just the whole Earth gets dark, and it's winter for years and years. So if that happens,
Why are you doing this to us?
I'm sorry. The end of the world is coming, and it's my fault.
Oh my God.
So let's watch for volcanoes now.
I know.
Specifically Katla in Iceland and Cerro Negro in Chile.
That's
Yes. I did the research.
Yeah, but if those two blow
That's
up,
true.
apparently we all have to go to Mars. So.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. Yeah.
So I got to get the book out before that happens, because then I have to come up with another way that the Earth, pretty much society falls apart.
Well, both sci-fi sells really well out here in Colorado.
Yeah.
By the way, if you ever want to come to like Denver Fan Expo, that kind of thing, because Space Force is out here, and so you've got a lot of, and then like my brother works at the Space Foundation, and so they do events all the time. The Space Symposium was just here in town, like, so we get a lot of space nerds out here. It's so much fun. So yeah.
My problem is that I drive.
Space Force. That's
I know.
Drive.
It's a real thing,
It's
though.
only like, wow.
I know.
I'm from Kentucky.
You do it. Yeah, you do it in 20 hours.
So I looked for Seattle for Worldcon, and it's a 42-hour drive for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm flying.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to have the books printed and sent to the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the good thing about Seattle is that you just hop on a train and you're in downtown.
Yeah, you
From
don't
the
need a
airport.
car.
Super easy.
Yeah, Denver, you need a car.
I've already told people I'll probably end up just camped down in the underground, waiting for people I know to come in, because then I can just walk them up to the hotel and meet them down there. So
Nice.
Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah. And for Denver, we're here, so you guys can all send your books here, and then we'll just bring them up. So
So I would like to. I made a deal with my boss this year because last year I did 18 cons, and 7 of them were out of state with 5 to 12-hour drives.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that again because it nearly killed me. And he's like, yeah, we know your work was terrible.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, I'm only going to do 10. I'm up to 11, maybe 12 now, but I told him 10. But most of them are in state, so
yeah.
I don't have.
You guys have a lot of options out there. There's not too many out here. It's like there's like the Denver one.
Well,
and then,
it's a lot of space.
Yeah, you got to go a long way.
Yep.
So.
Well, I mean, from where I am, everything is at least a 2-hour drive at the bare minimum. A 2-hour drive, and you haven't reached any city of significance in those 2 hours. So if you get anything real, it's 5 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
So the last con I did was kind of a dud, except the guy there, he said, I will trade you this sword for your 4 books. So
Awesome.
That was my reaction too. It's like, what a deal. Holy hell.
Yeah.
If I give you 8 books, will you give me 2?
Right.
Because he said, he's like, yeah, I'll make a deal with you, a sword for your books. I'm like, okay, how much is he going to give me off? Because he said he's selling them for $300. I'm like, how much will he give me off if I give him the 4 books? I'm like, well, if I have good sales, I'll talk to you. And he's like, are you going to do it? Your 4 books for a sword of your choice? And I'm like, wait, I misunderstood.
Wow. That's why we need to go to cons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made $300 in sales, and I got the $300 sword for 4 books. So therefore,
You need $600 in sales.
There you go. Yeah.
You're right out 600.
And it kind of looks like Bilbo's sword as well, so it's kind of got that going for it.
So Roman Gladius.
Okay, I don't care. It still kind of looks like Bilbo's sword.
I
Don't bring me
also-
down, man.
I also had a guy who's like, you trade books, and he made all his own hot sauces.
Ooh,
And so I had 5 bottles of hot sauce for 4 books, 4 paperbacks this time.
nice.
So, I mean, it was a great con. I didn't make much money-wise, but I bartered like crazy.
Yeah. That's the way to go.
It's a good deal. Andrew and Patricia, thank you so very much for hanging out with us for the last 90 minutes. I appreciate it. Everybody, all the links are below the video. Mike says, he tells me. So go check them out on Twitter and the other ones.
Yeah.
All the places, all the things.
I was on the road a lot today. I'm tired, and
Well, thank
unlike
you.
three of you, I can count. I have to get up for work in the morning. So Bilbo get talked to the Lions, really? I must have missed that one.
That's the Gladius.
That's the
So, yes, thank you all.
Hey, good luck on your weekly show. What's the name of that again?
Late night book chat.
Yeah, late night book chat every Monday night at 9 p.m. Mountain Time, 11 p.m. Eastern.
And how long does that go for?
1 hour.
Yeah,
An hour?
We're keeping it to an hour.
keeping
no
it to
longer.
an hour. Yeah.
Okay, so if I plan right, I can take my shower early and I can watch it then. So okay,
Sure. Yeah.
Just don't wash your hair. Never
I'll be
mind.
bed by midnight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
I guess we're going to end it here before we start talking about hair routines. But thank you again for being on the show. It was a lot of fun, and we'll end it.